With 3 million members searching, SingleMuslim.com proudly sponsors Single Muslim Live.
Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuhu, and welcome to Single Muslim Live, sponsored by SingleMuslim.com here on British Muslim TV. We are streaming live on Sky 752. We're also streaming on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, and YouTube, wherever you're watching in from. Welcome, welcome, welcome to the show today. I'm your guest host this evening. My name is Zahra Pedersen, and I am super excited to sit here and share this evening with you all. And even more so, I am very, very, very excited to welcome this evening's guest, who will be talking with me today about female empowerment. That's correct. We're coming up for Valentine's Day now, which means romance is in the air, but even more so, female empowerment is in the air. Today's guest is Jennifer Ogunyemi. Jennifer, assalamu alaikum.
Wa alaikum salam. Thank you for having me this evening. Just super excited.
Oh, hey, I'm the one who's excited. I love chatting to you. You are such a badass Muslim woman, and I am such a fan of you. I'm super inspired by everything that you do. Very quickly, for our guests, can you just introduce yourself a little bit?
Oh, thank you for your kind words, Sarah. So my name is Jennifer, and I am the founder of Sisters in Business. And Sisters in Business is a female empowerment platform where we empower women to start their businesses, scale their businesses, but also be authentically themselves within that whole process of owning your business. Yes,
it's boss Muslima. That is what it is, yes. And I'm living for it. I am absolutely living for it. So we're coming up now to Valentine's Day, and there's all this romance in the air. People, I think this is it is the first Valentine's Day in lockdown, and I think that there's so much pressure on people to sort of like, oh, what are they going to do? What's your suggestions?
Just be happy with yourself.
Yes, I love it. Be happy with yourself.
There's nothing wrong in enjoying your own company. There's nothing wrong in just, embracing the fact that if you don't have anyone, it's okay. And, sometimes we just have to be present for ourselves in order for us to be present for anybody else anyway. So, just embrace the fact that we are in lockdown and you may be by yourself. But, it's the way that it is now, and let's just be happy in that moment.
I love that. I think that this is actually a really good Valentine's Day to really sort of embrace yourself, who you are as a person, and be proud of what you've done. So I think that that's a really, really good topic. Before we continue the conversation and the discussion, I'd like to remind the viewers that they can take part as well. They can call into the studio. The number is 01924 231 083. If you've got any questions for Jennifer, feel free to call in. You can also send a text on WhatsApp on 0795 0797 017. So feel free to join in the conversation. Jennifer, I am actually really intrigued in finding out more about your particular brand of empowerment, female empowerment, because you do specialize in the Muslim woman empowerment, correct?
Yes, that's right. That's right, because I think it's about time that we empowered ourselves. And, like I've said so many times before, as I wrote in our conversations, like we got tired of asking permission at people's tables. We wanted to create our own table so that we can just pull up a seat with our tea and just enjoy each other's company, but also being authentically practicing in whatever capacity you're practicing your faith, and just being around women that are just like-minded. And a recent phrase that I really love is also being heart-minded. And there's empowerment in that. There's some special sauce in that, and that's something that I really have a strong passion for. It's just bringing the women together Because when we're all together, we know there's something special that happens when we all get together, mashallah. So yeah, it's such a passion of mine, which I've decided to take on and, you know, really create impact within our communities with it. And to be honest, we have a lot to celebrate. We have a lot to empower each other with. And why not?
You mentioned heart passion. I haven't heard that term before. Do you mind explaining?
Do you know, when I became Muslim 16 years ago, right, I was connecting with sisters not by what's up here, but by what was in my heart. And you know, when you connect with people, you know that when you have that connection, it just feels different. It feels special. You know, people talk about connecting all the time, but you know, when you've connected with that woman and she understands you and she understands your intuition and she understands that you don't even have to speak, and she knows what you're going through, that's heart-minded people, you know, not just necessarily looking at, you know, what we're saying and how we're saying it, but just being in each other's presence and understanding that, girl, today is a hot mess and I got you because we already know what you're going through, kind of thing. And, you know, there's something really, really, really special about that. And, you know, a lot of us, we don't use it enough. And it's a superpower that I believe that all women have. We don't use it enough. So that's why, you know, we created the platform to remind women of that, you know, when we are connecting, let's connect by what's in our hearts rather than what's in our mind.
Yes, I love that, because it's more like the intuition, and that's a gift I think that women have been given a little bit more of than most men, at least.
Absolutely.
I'm sorry if that's triggering some people out there, but it's the truth, you know, it's the truth, because I think that women have really been gifted with the power of intuition. But the problem is that society is not teaching us to honor that gift. Really anymore. It's like, no, you have to think logically, you have to think rationally, and in reality that doesn't always do the job, though, does it? Especially when you're trying to connect with other people, it's not necessarily what's in the mind. As you said, it's a heart connection, it's that true
Absolutely.
connection.
Absolutely. Yeah. And it, you know, it's all about leaning into our femininity. And that's why it's so much more, you know, different when we do connect, because as you said, connection can be quite masculine, and, you know, there's nothing wrong with being masculine, and we're not, you know, negating masculine energy. But as women, and really, you know, leaning into our femininity with a little bit of vulnerability, but also mixing a bit of intuition into it, creates something that will, you know, when you leave with a full heart, like, you know, that you fill that cup for that moment, that day, that week, that month. And this is something that, yes, it has to be nurtured, but you can have it, you know, however you choose to nurture it is something that is innate within all of us as women. So why not unleash it and, you know, be the best who you can be, whilst empowering yourself, but also empowering the other woman that's watching you unleash that special source.
Yes, yes, yes. And I know personally, you and I, we've been to a lot of different sort of female Muslim events together in London. And I don't like, I know you can feel this. There's a special particular vibe at these events when there's only women. It's as if the whole room just kind of takes a breath, and there's an authenticity. And it's not to say that a man can't be in a room and you can have a great time. We are not anti-men. But sometimes you need the female-only spaces as well.
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely. It's that village. You know, it's that moment of taking off all the barriers that we put up as women as we go through day to day. It's that moment of just bearing it all and just saying, take me as I am. And, you know, just like you said, even when I met you, I talk about the vibe that we had, that we met when we first met. Like, you knew when you had that connection, you feel warm, you feel fuzzy, you know, all the good stuff that comes along with creating a really good connection. But it's about just being open to it. And like you said, we don't necessarily have to have men around for us to have any kind of a good time. You know, we all can have a good time, halal vibes and doing all of that. But we also have to be open to wanting to do that in order for us to be able to feel those kind of connections.
So true. So actually, what we're trying to say, maybe a little bit inadvertently here, is this Valentine's Day, celebrate your female friendships.
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely. Why not? Why not? We talk about we love you fi sabilillah, we love you for the sake of Allah. And it's really saying it not from your throat but from your chest. I like saying things from my chest, like own it. It's ownership time. If you really, really love that sister of yours or that friend, or you're nurturing that relationship, let her know exactly how you feel, because there's no shame in us, expressing our love for each other. There's no shame in us being together and honoring the love that we have for each other. It's something that society has kind of taken away from us a little bit. And I think during this pandemic that we've been experiencing, it's allowed us to really understand the connections that we've had with each other and how much we miss those connections, So
yeah, and let's be real, Jennifer. We've been stuck indoors with our husband for like a year. We don't need an extra night. And we're not done with that. Like we need to celebrate the relationship.
Right.
Yeah. Is it just me?
No, it's me as well. I'm there with you. Don't worry. It's so true. It's true because let's think about it, right? We talk about marriage all the time, and we talk about loving your spouse, but who's teaching us how to love each other? Who's teaching us that loving each other is absolutely okay? Because that's the way that our predecessors loved each other, and that's how they were able to get along with each other and really create that village, and really have that wholesome, feel-good vibe about when you've started your day on a really good day, you end up having a really good week and a really good month, and it can even lead into a really good year. That's the vibes that we want all the time, and as long as you are with that vibe, you will attract other people with that vibe. That's what I love about vibe. Like it's just a magnet that allows other people that vibrates on the same level as you to be like, I see you, girl, and I'm coming. Like we're about to connect and do great things together. So yeah, definitely agree.
Yeah, and I absolutely love that. And I do think that we're standing in a very unique situation right now in the world where we have a chance to look at our relationships, our connections with other people in a very different light. And I think this Valentine would actually be a really good idea to really start looking at how we can nurture and honor some of our other relationships around the world as well. We're going to come into a break now. Assalamu alaikum and welcome back to Single Muslim Live, sponsored by SingleMuslim.com on British Muslim TV. I'm your host, Zahra Pedersen, and today we're talking about female empowerment and Valentine's Day with Sisters in Business founder Jennifer Ogunyemi. We are starting off this second segment with a question from one of the viewers, and it says, Assalamu alaikum, Zahra Pedersen. I hope she is enjoying hosting the show for the first time today. Jazakallah khair, I'm having a great time. A little bit nervous, but it'll go away at some point, inshallah. Could I ask, do you think there are enough Muslim women role models? I like that Jennifer Ogunyemi spoke about female empowerment. Our Prophet's wife, Khadija, was a good businesswoman, alhamdulillah. That's a really good question, Jennifer. I'll let you get on that one.
Yeah. Okay, so let's be real. You're sitting in front of two amazing sisters who in their own right is a role model for other sisters, mashallah. But I also love the fact that, we spoke about the Prophet's wife, Khadija, may Allah be pleased with her. And I think one of the things that really drew me to the Prophet's wives and in the ownership that they had over the roles and responsibilities that they had is the fact that they dominated whatever it is that they were doing. So we talk about Khadija, the tradeswoman, the first woman to Islam, she was a divorcee, she was a mother, but she was also an awesome role model for the women around her. Not only the women, but also for the men around her too. Then we go on to like Aisha, may Allah be pleased with her, the scholar, the wife that really studied Islam, studied the Prophet ﷺ, and his ways and the things that he'd done, and not being afraid to really stay in that position. And I think when we look back at the mothers of the believers, no matter who you're looking at, and whatever role and whatever responsibility that they had at that time, what we know about them is that they fully owned that role, right?
Yes.
There was no wavering. There was no, I'm not confident in doing this. They fully stepped into it, embraced it, and they bossed it. And that's what I love, because unfortunately, we've come into a society where we're constantly being apologetic for being Muslim, apologetic
Yes.
for, being not the type of Muslim woman that society wants us to be. And it's about, actually, we are being the Muslim women that Allah wants us to be, first of all. And
I want to come into that a little bit before we move on too quickly, because I don't want you to skip that too soon, that point, because it's so important. It's as if we've regressed a little bit as Muslim women, and now we're kind of building up again to get back to where the women were in the time of the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam. What happened?
Do you know what? I think let's be honest. We lost a lot of confidence. Yeah. Through things that have happened through history, through things that we know that has really affected marginalized communities. For instance, we look at slavery, we look at all these things that have really affected us as a race, as an ethnic, as ethnic groups. And all of this really plays into that. Now, also, you've also got the narrative of you're a woman of faith and you are to be seen and not heard. You can't do both. You can't be the woman of faith and be out there. You can't be the woman of faith and, and wanted to have a job, but still have children. You have to choose one. And I think what's happening is that we're starting to teach ourselves and unpacking the narratives that we don't want upon ourselves as women of faith. And for me, it's a special time to be in, because I can be, just as you are, Zahra, part of that change, part of that culture where we're really stepping out and really coming into the light of whether you wear hijab, whether you don't wear hijab, we can stand next to each other and unite on the fact that we are Muslim women.
Yes, and we're seeing it happening, though. I mean, your network is doing that. Sisters in Business is definitely doing that. It's bringing Muslim entrepreneurs, female Muslim entrepreneurs together, and giving that network, that sense of community, that sense of support from each other. So that's one place. But I know there are a lot of other places like that as well. Now with the new app with Clubhouse, we're seeing more and more groups of Muslim women gathering in these chat rooms and having these very honest conversations with each other as well, and we're talking about these really big subjects like empowerment and female boss mode and being a mum and being a boss and all these amazing things, right? So are we seeing this whole new uprising of really strong female Muslim leadership?
Absolutely, we are. And in fact, we've been seeing it for a long time. But because social media wasn't around to really highlight these type of women, we weren't exposed to them. But I just want to clarify something. When we talk about female empowerment and we're talking about bossing it and we're talking about all these things, we're not talking about, leaving behind everything else that you are, the wife, the mother, and all of that. What we're saying is that you can have those roles and still lead in the position where you are. So if you are that homeschooling mum and you have a passion, you can be that homeschooling mum and still be yourself as a Muslim woman and still pursue that passion at the same time. So, and I know that, don't want the anti-feminists to come after me and think that I'm just all about, women, but we are all about women, but also we understand the roles that we play within our homes and the importance of a woman within the Muslim society and the importance of a woman next to her husband. We understand all of that. But what we're saying is that that quote, behind every good man is a woman. We don't want to be behind no more. We want to stand next to you or stand a little bit in front of you, but still know that we're still holding everything down.
Well, let's be real. I mean, women are the pillars of society. I mean, we're doing so much.
Yes.
Society would fall apart without us. It is. I mean, it was
absolutely. No, it would. Let's be real.
I'm not sure about that one just yet. You may need to convince me. But, you know, we are such pillars of society, and we're doing so much and we're contributing with so much. And instead of thinking of ourselves as being sort of like a contributor to men's success, you know, we bring success as well. And we can breed success. And we're allowed to have both. You can be a mum, you can be a housewife, and you can also have a thriving business. And you can be empowered. The empowerment, I really feel like, is such a I don't know what the word I'm looking for here is, but, you know, it's so important for us to really bring that topic more to light in Muslim communities amongst our women, that we're allowed to be empowered and that there's nothing wrong with it. And there's so much strength for our communities, the more we empower the women in the communities as well.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And going further than that is also empowering the generations that are coming behind us and making sure that they find their position without having to go through the issues or the narratives of being that, you know, burnt out woman, that, you know, we're leading the way, not only for ourselves, but also for them too. And ensuring that the women and girls that they are bringing into the world is also women that, you know, that are strong, mashallah, that, you know, women of faith, that's dedicated to their faith. And, you know, it's also really important for us to understand that the whole world is watching this movement. The whole world is watching the uprising of a Muslim woman. And we have to get it right, because it's dawah, isn't it? We're showing the people that, you know, no matter who we are or what I look like, that should not be a hindrance on the position that I take in being a leader or being someone that empowers other women into being leaders.
Yes. Do you think that that kind of pressure from having the whole world watching what we as Muslim women do next, so to speak, you know, what we do to take back our power so we're not suppressed by the bad Buddha that is the Muslim man or whatever, you know, does that add more, does it make it more difficult, or does that make it easier for us?
You know, it's a bit 50-50. I think in one hand, it does make it a little bit more difficult, and it makes it difficult because, yes, there is that added pressure of getting it right, or, you know, being in the right spaces and having that microscopic eye really looking at what you're doing. But on the other hand, it's a way of, you know, invoking conversations, facilitating conversations that we normally wouldn't be able to have, you know, and bringing forth, you know, issues that we want to bring forward, but we never really had the platform to bring forward. But also, you know, it's also allowing ourselves to really get to know who we are and the roles that we play within our different communities in which that we're in. And, you know, and being sure of ourselves and understanding that we are more than just, you know, you can be the leader, but you also know who you are and you're sure of who you are. And being a leader is also part of that, you know, having strong roots in your faith, having strong roots in you being a woman, but also trusting who you are as a woman and trusting your community to be able to trust you, but also having that ultimate trust in Allah, that Allah has given you that kind of judgment and that kind of trust to be able to lead in a way that is good for not only for you, but also good for the community, inshallah.
Yeah, and for the Ummah. I think it's really interesting because we're in a situation where we have a lot of control. We can change the narrative the way we want to change it. And I think that's where it becomes very interesting with looking at how the media as well and the rest of the world is then looking at us, because we can set the tone. Yeah, that's power.
Absolutely. That is power right there.
That's a lot of power, and it's power that we haven't really experienced before as Muslim women in our communities in the same way. And also because with the help of social media, we are now able to, if something's being said about us that we don't necessarily agree with or we think is directly damaging or toxic to us, we can call people out.
Yeah.
So
absolutely. I think that's why I say that we're in a really good position, because of issues like the Black Lives Matter movement has really shone a light on injustices that, you know, that the Black community is facing. But also, it's also brought about conversation about the intersectionalities that come under the Black community, you know, which then leads on to the fact that, okay, that, we know there's a Black community, and we also know there's Black Muslim women in the community, but also what it means is that there's other marginalized women within that community, so it really is a knock-on effect. And, as sad as the Black Lives Matter movement is and why we have to have it, it really is giving us a chance to be able to shine some light on who we are as women.
Jennifer? We're going to have to go into a break. I'm so sorry to cut you off there, but because it's so interesting and so important. But let's continue that right after the break. We'll see you in a minute here on Single Muslim Live. Welcome back to Single Muslim Live, sponsored by SingleMuslim.com. I'm your host, Zahra Pedersen, and today I'm talking to Jennifer Ogunyemi about female empowerment. Right before the break, Jennifer, you were really getting into some really interesting subjects there. I'm so sorry I had to cut you off, but the break waits for no one. So let's continue on that, and then after that, I've got a question for you from a viewer from WhatsApp as well. Inshallah.
So yeah, as I was just saying, that it's the BLM movement, and something that I'm really passionate about is making sure that within although I don't like to use that term BAME, but within the BAME movement, that we're delving deeper and understanding that within that movement is not just a Black woman. There are Black women of faith within that, and then within that, that cover of Black women of faith, there's also other intersectionalities that are that are marginalized communities too, that are also Muslim, that we also live side by side to, and also needs a light shining on who they are and the awesome stuff that they do. So it's for me, I always say one thing, that through pain comes really positive things. And as painful as the Black Lives Matter movement is, and other movements that we have been seeing, is actually giving us a bit of time and a little bit of an opportunity, a massive opportunity to change the narrative of who we are as Muslim women within that. And it's a special time, and there is so much happening and so much going on and so much conversations that are going on. But it's time that we took it and we owned it, and we walk with that torch because we deserve to. We really do deserve to. We have been downtrodden for so long. We've had names put on us, labels put on us that we do not deserve, just because of a few run of the litter, as I like to call them. But we deserve it. I mean, look
Absolutely.
At our mothers, how much they've been through, and the challenges that they have gone through just to be able to survive. And for a moment we were kind of doing that too, and having the same challenges. But I'm so happy to be able to see that it's starting to change and really starting to turn the narrative upside down.
Absolutely, and I agree with you. It's nice to see that there are opportunities for these marginalized groups to finally also get a voice and change their narrative and feel that empowerment as well. And I think that that's very important. We do have a question here. It's sent from an anonymous person on WhatsApp. What's your opinion on people who think that Muslim women should all wear hijabs?
Oh, that is such
we're diverting ever so slightly, but you know what? I like the question, because there's also, but let's be real here. Sorry for cutting you off. Let's be real here. There's a lot of empowerment in wearing the hijab, and there's also a lot of empowerment in choosing not to wear the hijab.
Yeah, I mean, look, from my point of view, I wear hijab, isn't it? So obviously, clearly, I do believe that hijab is something that we have to wear, but also, I don't really like to get caught up in those conversations, because again, that we as a Muslim community, and I'm about to get in trouble here, Zahra, we as a Muslim community, we like to get ourselves caught up in issues that again takes away from the greater issue, right?
Yeah.
I love my sisters who wear hijab. I love my sisters who doesn't wear hijab. It's a choice that Allah has given each and every person. Okay. Yes, some people take from the opinion that hijab is something that is obligatory, and I do take from that opinion. But it doesn't mean that I'm also not going to embrace my sister who doesn't wear hijab. And again, hijab in different cultures means different things. hijab in different societies means different things. But right now, the issue is not about the fiqh of hijab and what I believe, to be right or what to be wrong. This is part of the disunity that happens when we're talking about female empowerment. So as much as I love the person that sent that question in, I'm, in no way am I saying that that question is wrong. I'm saying that sometimes as Muslims, we have to understand that there is certain things that we ask in certain places. And for sure, for the fact that we're talking about female empowerment, a question like that has caused so much disunity, that has caused so much division. I'm not here for the mess. Like, we're here to really give so much, any sister that could be listening to this and she needed to hear this message today of building herself up. Sisters are at home during the pandemic battling mental health. Sisters are at home during this pandemic struggling with deen, struggling with hijab, struggling with...
So let me ask you, Jennifer, then, in when we talk about female Muslim empowerment, do we get caught up too much? Because as I said, my take is there's empowerment in wearing it, and there's also empowerment in choosing not to wear the hijab. It's an individual choice. But do we get too caught up on the question of hijab when it comes to female empowerment? Do we get too caught up on appearance?
Yes, I do believe so. The reason why I say that, again, because it's another way of causing disunity. Everybody has their opinions on things that are right and that are wrong. But as Muslims, like I said, it's all about the physicality of practicing, right? And, when we look back in the days of the Prophet ﷺ, it was all about the spirituality of it and, learning and loving Islam from the heart. And I'm not a shaker out here. I'm not trying to be a scholar or anything like that. But what I am saying is that sometimes we have to look beyond physicality. It's each and everybody's individual choice whether they want to wear hijab or not. I'm not out here trying to impose it on anyone. I don't think anyone should impose on anyone. It's a journey that each individual woman has to go through. But, again, like you said, it's just something that we're just getting caught up in. We're having these same conversations for years now. Is hijab this? Is hijab? Let's move the conversation on to, if you believe it's obligatory, how are you nurturing the journey of another sister to make her understand that it's obligatory? So it's just getting caught up, and it's just one of those things, unfortunately.
So when we talk about empowerment, then what would you like people to focus on?
The elevation of each other, the celebration of each other, the support of each other, the moments when she's feeling ashamed and you're covering her shame. The moments where she's feeling like she's being judged and you're covering her and allowing and showing her that she has nothing to fear judgment of or over. This is what comes to my mind when I think about female empowerment. It's not just about, saying that I want the best for you, but showing you through my actions that I actually want the best for you. And how can we get to having the best together by doing that journey together? That for me is female empowerment. Yeah.
I love that. I mean, I know you said I'm not trying to be a scholar or a sheikha, but you know what? I can listen to you and be like, oh my God, this woman should be a scholar. You drop knowledge, you drop gold. I'm living for it, I want to ask then, what do you see then getting in our way? I mean, I think you've kind of already said sort of like the focus on the hijab or not hijab is one thing that kind of gets in the way of us really discussing female empowerment properly. Is there anything else that you're thinking is kind of getting in our way to getting that empowerment?
We're seeing each other too much as competition.
Yeah.
There isn't enough collaboration that's going on. There isn't enough, I'm in an elevated space and I want you to be in the elevated space with me. It's too much, we're too much, getting caught up in the copying, am I doing better than? And, comparison is the thief of joy, right? But yet we keep finding ourselves getting caught up in those moments all the time. In fact, when we're nurturing a relationship with each other, we should see it as a collaboration. How can we come together to make something better? Or how can we come together to empower each other? And that is one major thing that, we've been seeing recently, that, there's this talk over competition and collaboration, but how many of them is actually saying that I want to collaborate with you from the heart and not just because it sounds good to say?
Yeah. I love that, because I think there's so much ego and pride that comes in for us, because, we're human, we're flawed. And so instead of thinking, how can we elevate each other and help each other elevate, it's the whole sort of like, I want to get there first. Yeah. I want to be the biggest. I want to be the best. Yeah. And it's actually just slowing us all down, isn't it?
Absolutely.
Essentially, none of us are really going forward that way. All of us are just kind of stagnant in the same place, because we can't just work together. And instead, we're kind of focusing on the wrong things and criticizing each other for the wrong things. And you know what, talking smack about each other to try and diminish each other's sort of, what's it called? Authenticity. Right?
Yeah, definitely. And part of that conversation is also knowing the kind of legacy that we want to leave and understanding each other's legacies. And one thing that I've been saying to my friends for ages is that when I die, I want Sadaqah Jariyah. How many of your friends know what you want when you die? How many of your friends understand the legacy that you're trying to leave when you're no longer there? These are the conversations that we need to be having. These are the conversations that we need to start to have, if we're not already having them, and not being ashamed in that. No one really wants to go around feeling grim all the time, but it's part of a legacy that as a Muslim, that it's imperative to leave. How do you want to be remembered? How do you want to be talked about? These are things that we need to know about each other, because only then we can truly collaborate and truly come up together in that empowerment space. So there are so much conversations that we could be having, but we're not. We're focusing on things that are taken away from the conversation. So much value that we could be leaving with each other, but we're allowing things to take away from that value as well. So I guess it's all about finding that balance, where whatever it works for you, but also finding the sisters around you that supports that balance, finding the sisters around you that supports that legacy, and whatever works for you.
I think it's such a good point that you brought up the word legacy here, because this is something as women, because we're also mothers, we're raising the next generation of new empowered women. I'd love to delve a little bit more into detail with that after the break with you, if that's okay, Jennifer, because I think it's a really interesting and very important topic for us to discuss as well, and create awareness around the legacy that we're leaving around for our girls. But we're going to talk about that after the break, so stay tuned, don't go anywhere. We're still talking to Jennifer Ogunyemi after this. Welcome back to Single Muslim Live, sponsored by SingleMuslim.com. I'm your host, Zahra Pedersen, and I am speaking to founder of Sisters in Business, Jennifer Ogunyemi. Jennifer, right before the break, we were talking about legacies and what legacies we're leaving behind. And I really want to get a little bit deeper into that subject, because I think it is so important and interesting. You're a mum. Is it a four?
A four.
A four. And I know there are some girls, because I met one of them when she was a baby, and my dog scared her, and he scared, it was a whole calamity, let's talk into that. How is it to be a mum and raising independent, powerful, empowered women who are also Muslim?
So, let me just be real. It's not an easy job. And anyone that's a mother knows that it's not easy. But I think, I've got two boys and I've got two girls. And I remember when I was having my first girl, I remember saying to myself that, what is it that I actually want her to remember me by? Like, I was spending so much time in dealing with imposter syndrome, dealing with confidence issues. And I thought, dealing with weight issues, and I thought, is this really what I want to project onto my girls? Like my boys, mashallah, they got their physique from their dads. I didn't really have a worry about them in that sense. But I was like, really? Like, is this what I'm really going to project onto them? All this heaviness? And I said, no. I said, I need to change that. And it was literally it felt like a light bulb moment, right? When the whole room suddenly went light, and I was like, what is it exactly? Is it that I want them to remember me by? And why do I want them to remember me by that? You know? And then that went on to, what do I want my friends to remember me by? Like, what is it that when they're talking about me when I'm gone in those circles, what is it that I would love to hear them say? And, you know, in terms of how am I serving the community? What am I giving back to the Muslim community? So when we, you know, talk about Sadaqah Jariyah, you know, it's more than just, you know, being a nice person. It's about being a person that really leaves an impact, that leaves that imprint on the people that you come across. And then, you know, it then spurred on into Sisters in Business and, you know, really talking about the different kind of legacies that we want to leave for each other. But for me, leaving a legacy is so important, because once I'm gone, there's nothing else, you know, apart from my good deeds, inshallah, and apart from my salah, inshallah, that, you know, may Allah accept them from me. But, you know, within the grand scheme of things, who is Jennifer Ogunyemi? What has she done? What has she achieved? And why is it important that the work that I do is carried on? And, you know, if I ask anyone when we're having that conversation, why is it that you haven't spoke about leaving a legacy? Because we don't want to deal with the thought of being left behind, you know, or leaving people behind. And sometimes it could be such a heavy subject, but for me, it also leans into that empowerment part, you know, in understanding who you are and what you want, you know. So Zahra, let me ask you, what legacy do you want to leave behind?
Oh, child, listen. Put me on the spot. No, good thing is that I'm actually the one who's hosting, so I can just kind of deflect. No, I'm not going to do that. What legacy do I want to leave behind? My legacy, I really just want to inflict change. On like positive change within the Muslim community, and it really comes down to the female empowerment as well, and also really, to be fair, around mental health as well. Let's be honest about ourselves. Let's stop being hypocrites. That's what I want. But enough about me, because this is about you, hey. This is about you. I want to continue on with the legacy, though, because I think it, again, is so important that we discuss these things. And I know that, as you said as well, is a lot of people don't want to think about it because it's a heavy subject, and we don't really want to think about, you know, death and what we're leaving and not leaving behind and all of these things. But do you think that we, in this time right now, have even more of a responsibility to the next generations, because we're in the middle of this break in status quo? You know, we're sort of like, as far as I'm aware at least, the first generation really to start raising our voices and being seen and heard, and going out there and breaking stigmas and taboos and stereotypes and saying we're here and we're powerful. Do we have more of a responsibility to leave the legacy?
Absolutely. Just as our mothers had a responsibility of leaving a legacy behind, just as their mothers had the responsibility of leaving a legacy behind, but even more important now, because there's so much of an influx of things that we're consuming through social media, what looks like goals, what isn't goals, what's expected, what isn't expected, what is the perfect Muslim man, you know, all of those things can really impact the kind of legacy that you're trying to leave behind. And because social media is a thing, you know, and everyone's got it, it's so easy accessible, but yet it's so easy to destroy who you are. So we have to strengthen the girls that we're bringing up, not only in their deen, but also in who they are and their identity as Muslim girls, that will allow them to be able to go forward and, you know, start to create a legacy for themselves. You know, because unfortunately, as much as we're in this empowerment phase and we're really changing the narrative, there's still a lot of, you know, underpinning things that we haven't got right yet. You know, and we have to be honest, as a community, we're still doing things that is not right, you know, and once we start to address them, then we wouldn't have to work so hard. But we have to work so hard right now because we're doing, you know, it's like a community, you know, trying to create impact, but also undoing the impact that we're trying to create at the same time. So, you know, yes, we have a responsibility, just as our mothers have a responsibility, but my responsibility is making sure that my girls navigate their way through life in being that Muslim woman and being strong in her faith, but also strong in her identity too.
So I'm going to put you on the spot now. What are your suggestions for raising empowered young Muslim women, the next generation? Can you give any advice to the viewers?
I think, number one, really understanding who we are, or understanding who you are. So, you know, I'm from African descent, so understanding myself from my African traditions and my African culture. And then, you know, because that also will allow you to really be grounded in your faith, because you know who you are and you know your traditions and stuff like that. But also allowing our children to create a journey of their own. With us Muslims, we have a lot of arrogance around this issue of we're Muslim, we're saved, we're okay. No, we are just as vulnerable as any other community, right? The only thing that makes us different is the fact that we have a lot more trust, and we have a lot more reliance upon Allah in certain aspects of life. But we have to allow our children to go for a journey. Now, I'm not saying you completely let go, but what I'm saying is that you nurture that child through whatever journey that she's going through. We don't want to throw shame. Just as you mentioned, Zahra, mental health is a massive thing within the Muslim community. And it's because it comes from things like shame and judgment and not being able to speak and really carrying a lot of heavy things in our heart, and we can't get it out. That's not the generation that we want. So we want to give them the emotional intelligence. We want to give them the emotional capacity, but also capacity and room to expand and breathe into who they are going to be coming up. And, you know, it's that's all it is. If we look at it, that's all it is. You know, if our parents gave us the emotional intelligence, babes, we'll navigate through life a lot more easier than what we've been doing now, you know. And it's not only for the girls, but it's also for the boys, you know. There's a lot of talk about, you know, men don't cry, and the Prophet ﷺ cried. You know, the men in Islam, they cried, and they cried from their heart. So we know that it's okay to allow our men to have emotional intelligence and being able to tap into that intuitively. Yeah. You know, and it's all about expansion and just breathing and allowing space for that to happen.
Yeah, I also think it's really important. I love what you've said about the emotional intelligence. I think that's really important. And I think we're sort of getting better at understanding and recognizing how valuable that actually is for raising healthy individuals. But there's also the power of choice. You know, you're allowed to choose yourself, and you're allowed to choose how you practice your religion. You're allowed to choose how you show up and what your message is. So there's power of choice, and that choice is yours and not everybody else's, right? I absolutely love that. And I know you probably also agree on that for sure.
Of course.
So yeah, giving your daughters the choice as well.
Absolutely. And, you know, one thing that conversations with my husband is the fact that, you know, it's a journey, and I want them to experience that journey, because with that journey, can you really see sow the seed of love for Allah and also for yourself, but also having compassion with yourself when you're going through that journey, you know, and being easy and allowing yourself to have moments that you will falter, and allowing yourself the grace to make mistakes, because we're not perfect and none of us are going to be perfect. But it's really, you know, like you said, showing up in those imperfect moments, and also showing up in those moments that we think is also perfect, you know. It's a mixture of things. And I think it's a constant learning process, and we're a learning community, and we are learning, just as you said. And I think, like you said, we are getting better at it. And with each generation, we're going to get stronger. This generation that we're in is a lot stronger than our mother's generation. So inshallah, the generations after us is going to be a lot stronger than us.
Inshallah. Jennifer, unfortunately, we are coming up on time, though, here on the show, though. It has been an absolute pleasure to speak to you. Thank you so much for all the gold that you've dropped in this episode and all the advice that you've given. I am 100% certain that somebody's sitting out there feeling empowered just by listening to you talk. I mean, honestly, girl, I'm in awe.
Thank you.
I'm in awe. Here's the crown. I have put it on your head.
And I am fixing your crown too, my love.
Thank you, honey. No, thank you so much. It's been an absolute joy speaking with you today. And for everybody sitting out there and wondering, what am I going to do this Valentine's Day? You know what? If you're not married, even if you are, honey, listen, you spent a whole year with your partner. Celebrate yourself. celebrate yourself. And if you don't celebrate yourself, celebrate your friendships. If you're a woman, take the time to call a girlfriend, a sister, auntie, a cousin, and tell her how much you appreciate her and how much you love her, and celebrate those female friendships and empower another woman. Make her feel great, make her feel good. I promise you that is not a day wasted in any way whatsoever. I know that I'll definitely be calling my sisters up and telling them happy Valentine's Day. And thank you guys so much for watching today. My name was Zahra Pedersen. I'll see you hopefully another time. Assalamu alaikum.
With 3 million members searching, SingleMuslim.com proudly sponsors Single Muslim Live.